So I don't know where the time went, but I haven't filmed any horoscopes for the full moon in Cancer for YouTube. So we're about to do the horoscopes for all 12 signs right here, right now. So, Aries, we have this new moon happening for you in your fourth house of home, the past, and emotional roots. This new moon is actually conjunct Jupiter, your ninth and 12th house ruler, and it's making a sextile to Mars and Virgo in your sixth house. And so it's time to declutter up here and in your physical space. And so we are looking at a time to reset where you feel most at peace. And just remember that it starts inside. Taurus, we have this new moon happening for you in your fourth house, and Jupiter is going to be your eighth house ruler as well as your 11th house ruler. Taurus, maybe you're taking new classes. The third house can be a lot about dexterity, but also there's some sort of shift happening when we're talking about your community as well as how you're expressing yourself. And so you can expect some shifts when it comes to community and friendships. Some friendships might die off, but new ones can definitely be brought up and can be budding as well. And so just look out for Gemini. We have this new moon happening for you in your second house where we see your finances as well as self-esteem and values. We have the seventh house ruler and 10th house ruler Jupiter conjunct this new moon, and it's all making a sextile to Mars and Virgo in your Gemini. This new moon is really having you take the reins on where and with whom you find emotional and financial security, where you're finding support. And so it can be a time where you're fixing a lot at home, but also in your relationships as well, even if that relationship is with work. It is with work. But you're definitely standing up for yourself and saying, I am worth this, and so I deserve this. And those relationships that recognize that will stay around. The ones that don't, got to be left in the past. Cancer, this is your new moon, babe. So it's happening in your first house, and it's conjunct Jupiter in Cancer, which is going to be your sixth and ninth house ruler, making Mars and Virgo, that is making a sextile to this new moon. That is going to be placed in your third house. And so it's really a time to not just reset, but reclaim your body, your boundaries, and your emotional truth. No more swallowing words just to keep the peace. Leo, this new moon is happening for you in your 12th house, where we see dreams, rest, and recuperation, as well as a little bit of isolation and endings, too. And we see Jupiter conjunct this new moon. That's going to be your fifth and eighth house ruler, with Mars and Virgo making a sextile to this new moon. Mars and Virgo is going to be in your second house. Leo, this is the spiritual shedding before your season. We are seeing Mars in your second house, really helping you ground the intangible. And so it's time to rest, dream, but also tighten your budget, as well as feed your soul and not your ego. Virgo, we have this new moon happening for you in your 11th house of friendships, community, and hopes, dreams, wishes, all of that. We have Mars in Virgo in your first house. And so we also have, with this new moon, a conjunction in Jupiter, which is going to be your seventh and fourth house. So, Virgo, this is where I'm going to tell you that not everything has to be all about work. We have Mars in your first house. And so that initiation mode is being activated, but it's making a sextile to the new moon in your 11th. And so it's time to reconnect with people and plans and goals that feel emotionally fulfilling, not just strategic. And so the why of all of that needs to feel authentic and good as well. All right, Libra, we have this new moon in Cancer in your 10th house, where it is begging you for a career gut check. We have this new moon conjunct Jupiter, which is going to be your sixth and third house ruler, and it's going to be making a sextile to Mars and Virgo. That is going to be in your 12th house. So, Libra, a lot of times the 10th house gets labeled just as career, but the 10th house is not just your career, it's your calling. And so this new moon is really asking you to evaluate, are you overperforming just for approval? And do you feel safe in that success? Are you aligned with your calling? With Mars being in your 12th, you're doing a lot of reflection and figuring out what just needs to go. And so it can be a time of a lot of slow reflection, and that can be sacred. And so with Mars being in your 12th, it suggests resting before you actually take that big. So Scorpio, we have this new moon happening in your ninth house where we find beliefs, travel, higher education, but we also have Jupiter, the second and the fifth house ruler, conjunct this new moon, and it's all making a sextile to Mars in Virgo, which is going to be in your 11th house. So this could bring travel or just a focus on your belief system, but what we can see is that Mars in your 11th brings sharp focus to your group dynamics, as well as do you and your community have the same belief systems and values. And so I think with this new moon, really, it's really important to pick the people in the past that feel emotionally aligned, not just excited. Sagittarius, we have this new moon happening for you in your eighth house. And so we are seeing some emotional release and release of emotional debts and possibly financial debts as well. And so we have Jupiter, your first house and fourth house ruler, conjunct this new moon, and it's all making a sextile to Mars and Virgo in your 10th house. And so while you're clearing out these emotional and financial debts and getting your boss on, which is what Mars in the 10th wants you to do, it wants you to be in the boss seat of all of this. And so don't push past the healing that can come with this new moon. Grief is a teacher, not a weakness. Capricorn, we have this new moon happening in your seventh house of relationships, conjunct Jupiter, your 12th and third house ruler, and it's all making a sextile to Mars and Virgo in your ninth. So there's a deep desire to feel seen. With Mars being in your ninth, that definitely screams mutual growth is a non-negotiable. Real love feels safe and expansive. And so choose the ones who reflect that. Aquarius, we have this new moon happening for you in your sixth house. And so this is definitely a reset button that's being pressed, both with body, schedule, as well as work. We have Mars in Virgo making a sextile to this new moon in Cancer, and that's happening in your eighth house. So we've got some big changes happening. Jupiter is going to be your ruler of your 11th house as well as your second. So Aquarius, it's time for you to rewrite what does daily wellness look like, and that had better include emotional hygiene. Other than that, what we can see is that Mars in your eighth is helping you to cut ties with obligations that are really just draining you. And so it's time to ritualize your rest. Pisces, last but not least, we have this new moon happening for you in your fifth house of romance, art, and play. And we can see Jupiter is conjunct this new moon, which is going to be your 10th house and first house ruler. And so we also have the sextile to Mars and Virgo, which is going to be in your seventh house. So this suggests some sort of partnership energy is active, but make sure that you're not performing for love. Create because you feel, not to prove anything to anybody. Reclaim your joy as a healing act, not as a chore. All right, guys, those are going to be your horoscopes for the new moon in Cancer. We did shake up the format a little bit today. And so I will be back with my normal way of doing horoscopes for the full moon in Capricorn. Let me know if these horoscopes were helpful. I'd love to hear from you. And what are you most excited about during this new moon in Cancer? Other than that, I will talk to you in the next one. Bye.